Hello again. This week, the Barking to Gospel Oak Railway Line, which runs across North London, will officially become the Suffragette Line. This is at the instigation, of course, of the Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan. Since hardly anybody is aware of it now, I must point out that the suffragettes were a band of terrorists who carried out bombings across the whole country, with many of them being in London. I thought the viewers might like to hear about some of this activity and decide for themselves if it is a good idea to commemorate terrorism in this way. The image of Emily Davison falling beneath a horse at the 1913 Derby is a powerful one. It was filmed by a newsreel camera which ensured that an awful lot of people saw the incident and were affected by the ultimate sacrifice made for the cause of women's votes. What hardly anybody knows, a century later though, is that this woman was the one who began the first terrorist campaign to take place in 20th century Britain. She started in a small way by setting fire to pillar boxes, but on the 18th of February 1913, Davison and other women planted a bomb in a house which Chancellor of the Exchequer David Lloyd George was having built at Walton in Surrey. At a little after 6 in the morning, the 5 pounds of explosives went off, bringing down the ceilings and cracking a wall. The workmen were due there just 20 minutes after the bomb went off, and had they arrived just a little earlier, there could easily have been injuries or even fatalities. Emmeline Pankhurst had known about the planned bomb attack, and she was arrested and charged with incitement. At the Old Bailey that April, Mrs. Pankhurst was sent to prison for 3 years. The activities of the suffragettes have been making life difficult for those trying to reach a compromise with the government on the question of women's suffrage. Smashing windows and setting fire to buildings hardly helped to make the point that women were rational enough to be able to take part in the ordinary democratic process, and when the explosions started, there was a hardening of positions on the part of Prime Minister Herbert Asquith's administration. It was simply impossible to give in to the threat of terrorism. Even those who had previously been supporters of the cause now moved to distance themselves from female emancipation. It would take too long to list all the bombings carried out by the Women's Social and Political Union at this time, so I'll restrict myself to looking at some of the more notable ones. On the 4th of April, the day after Emmeline Pankhurst's trial ended, a bomb exploded at Oxted railway station in Surrey. A loaded pistol was found at the scene. On the afternoon of 14th of April 1913, a bomb was planted outside the Bank of England. The fuse was burning, and a very brave police officer carried it to a nearby fountain, extinguishing the fuse and preventing any casualties. 3 days later, a bomb was placed outside Aberdeen railway station. It consisted of a large charge of gunpowder with a candle burning in it to act as a primitive fuse. The porter saw the device and put out the candle. On the 24th of April, a bomb exploded with devastating force at the headquarters of the Northumberland County Council in Newcastle. Windows were shattered and the chimney of a neighbouring building blown down. At the same time that these bombs were being planted, arson attacks were carried out, together with the sabotage of communications. On 9th of March that same year, Saunderton and Croxley Green railway stations were destroyed by fire. Suffragette posters and literature were found nearby, including one which said, "Women burning for the vote." In Newcastle, telegraph poles were sawn down and telegraph wires were cut across England. The same day that the bomb exploded in Newcastle, another one caused extensive damage in Manchester at the Free Trade Hall. This was of significance to the suffragettes because it was here in 1905 that the first act of suffragette militancy took place, when Emmeline Pankhurst's daughter Christabel heckled Winston Churchill. This is not a complete list of the attacks in April 1913, but gives some idea of the scale of the campaign being waged. Things were to get a good deal worse, though, with bombs being planted across the whole of Britain and Ireland. The effects of the bombing, arson and sabotage could clearly be seen in the months following the burning of the railway station and bombings in the north of England. The suffragettes felt that the Church of England was a patriarchal institution and therefore a legitimate target for their attacks. On the morning of the 7th of May 1913, a verger in St Paul's Cathedral heard an ominous ticking noise as he passed the bishop's throne. It was coming from a parcel which the police found to contain a time bomb. The explosive used in this was not gunpowder, but the far more powerful nitroglycerine. Only a slight mechanical defect had prevented it from exploding. For the next 18 months, bombings and arson attacks took place across the whole of the United Kingdom. In May 1913, the Royal Observatory at Edinburgh was damaged by a bomb. The following month, bombs exploded at a new post office in Newcastle upon Tyne in the north of England, and also at Blackfriars Bridge in London. The day after the London attack, a large explosion damaged a canal bank in the Midlands. The intention had evidently been to flood surrounding low-lying farmland. Later in June, several stately homes in Scotland were burned down, and on the 5th of July there was an explosion at the Liverpool Cotton Exchange. On 11th November 1913, a bomb caused extensive damage to the greenhouse in Manchester's Alexandra Park. 3 days later, a bomb was planted at Sefton Park farmhouse in Liverpool. Then, on the night of 18th of December, the London districts of Camden and Holloway were rocked by the explosion of a charge of dynamite which had been placed against the wall of Holloway Prison. Although only minor damage was caused to the prison, the windows of nearby houses were shattered and jagged shards of glass narrowly missed children asleep in their beds. There were also attacks on a dockyard in Portsmouth, a very large fire, where 2 people were killed, although the fire in Portsmouth was never conclusively brought home to the suffragettes. Throughout the first 8 months of 1914, bombings and arson attacks continued relentlessly. In Glasgow, a well-known glasshouse was wrecked by an explosion, and churches in London were also bombed, including St Martin's in the Field in Trafalgar Square. On the 11th of June 1914, a bomb exploded in Westminster Abbey, which damaged stonework but caused no injuries. 2 days later, a bomb exploded in St George's Church in Hanover Square in the West End of London. The very last bomb of the terrorist campaign exploded in Northern Ireland at Lisbon's Christ Church Cathedral. That same day, the 1st of August 1914, Germany declared war on Russia, and then 2 days later on France. The First World War had begun. This then is the organisation now immortalised in the name of a London railway line. It does seem an odd choice of names to me, at any rate.